nothing. He makes me lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside quiet waters. He refreshes my soul. He guides me along the right path for his name's sake. Even though I walk through the darkest valley, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. You prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies. You anoint my head with oil. My cup overflows. Surely your goodness and love will follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. God bless his word.
Amen. Thank you, Ellie. All right, I want you to imagine that you're talking to a friend of yours, and she's telling you about her time that she spent in the hospital. And here's what she says. She says, I was in the hospital, and the doctors gave me all the tests and all the scans. And finally, when all of it was done, the doctor came in, and she looked at me, and she said, we've done all your tests, we've done all your scans, and there's nothing wrong with you. You don't need to have surgery. You don't need to have any treatment at all. You are perfectly healthy. And I knew when my doctor said that I had nowhere to turn but to God. Yeah, it sounds a little strange, doesn't it? And we were used to hearing, I have nowhere to turn but to God, but we don't normally hear it after good news. We're used to hearing this after bad news, and it is one way we think about God. We think about God as our 911 call. As our ambulance driver, as our paramedic or our emergency room doctor, as our emergency exit, or as the magician that'll make all the bad stuff disappear. It's a common way we think about God in our religion. There's really nothing wrong with it. I mean, it's actually a good thing that we know that when everything else fails, God will be there. When everyone else fails or doesn't show up, God will show up. God's going to be there for each and every one of us. And that is a good news. It's a good thing. And it's why I think when we look at any prayer concern list, at least any prayer concern list I have ever seen, it's always the negative, right? It's always sickness and loss. And it's those times that are most difficult for us. And those are the times when we call on God. When we can't handle it. When we can't take it. When we can't understand it. When we can't overcome it. Then we call on God. It's like the fact, we have jumper tables. Where do we keep them? We don't keep them in the front seat of the car, right? Well, you don't keep the jumper tables in the front seat. You keep them in the back seat. You keep them not in the back seat. You keep them in the trunk. And you're glad when they're there. When the car won't start, you take out the jumper cables and you start the car, and you're so thankful for them. You want to hug them, but then you put them back in the trunk again. And that's the way we can start thinking about God if we're not careful. I'm glad he's back there. I know I'm going to need him one of these days, but for now, everything's fine, so I'm going to keep him in the back seat. Well, there's something about that we know is wrong. We know that that's not true. We know God's with us through the bad times and the good times, too. And that's one reason I think we love the 23rd Psalm. You notice this about the 23rd Psalm? It has both good and bad. It has green pastures and it has dark valleys. And God is with us through it all. It's one thing, I think, the reason most people would say it's their favorite psalm. Or, frankly, if we're going to be quite honest, maybe for some of us, it's the only psalm we really know. Out of all 150, this is the one. Because it speaks to the truth of this world. Good times and bad, but God will be with us through it all. It's amazing how often we can get sucked into the idea of only one of these two extremes. And there are Christians who do and have in the past especially gone to the extreme of the negative, to have just only a dark valley faith, which says, this world is a pretty awful place. Terrible things happen over and over again, bad things and suffering, but the good news is someday we die. And that's the good news of this kind of faith, is that someday we're going to die, and we're going to go on, and in the meantime we're going to suffer, and you know what, if all the suffering that's brought to us, then we're going to make ourselves suffer by taking on such discipline, or such religious discipline, we have no joy in faith anymore. And there is that extreme of faith that we can go to, or we can go to the other extreme, and guess what? This other extreme is much more popular, and that is everything is great. Everything is wonderful. And following Jesus is easy. It's triumphant. And then what we want to tell you about is the success stories that exist. Because there are lots of them. All sorts of great stories about success in business, overcoming illness, just having going from a bad life to a good life, this idea of great success, and that's all we focus on. And you'll look around and you won't even hear about the idea of, discipline. That's not something you're going to hear about. Suffering. No. We're not going to talk about that here. It's all good, and it's all positive, and it's easy to fall on that side of faith as well, and not to think about the darker side, not to think about the valley of death. But here's the 23rd Psalm, and we love it because it presents us with a real picture of life. Isn't that true? A real picture of life. There is bad, and there is good too. Life is, we are reminded by reading this psalm, a tapestry. And there are dark threads and there are light threads, and they are all woven together. They're beautiful. So with the joy is sorrow, yes. And with the success is failure. And with the winning is losing. And together, all of these things make the harmony of life. Good and bad, it's quite often they're right next to each other. In fact, it's hard to discern exactly where we are. I mean, the dark valley and the green pasture, right next to it, we seem to be weaving in and out because life is so full of both joy and sorrow. In the Jewish wedding, the couple, remember, they break the glass. They put a glass down on the ground and they break it. And it's to remind them that even here in the midst of joy, there is suffering in life. When a Jesuit priest dies, his compatriots, fellow priests, get together and they have a party. They party to remind them that in the midst of sorrow, there is joy. The 23rd Psalm, joy and sorrow interwoven together. We love it for that. I'll tell you, you can hardly imagine going through the 23rd Psalm and taking out all the joy. Just all the joy, we're going to take it out, and all we're going to have is, the valley of the shadow of death, and we're going to have my enemies. We're going to have the bad parts, but not the good. Actually, it's kind of easy to remember that, or think about what that would be like, because there are so many songs that are like that. All bad, all negative, and it doesn't ring true. I mean, yeah, maybe for certain moments in our lives, we're thinking about all the bad and all the negative, and we're really down. But the truth is, life is both, and it is the joy of life. And actually, this part of the 23rd Psalm that is interesting and unusual is that it focuses on God with us during the joyful times. God is with us during these green pasture moments. And that's really important for us to remember, because we can start thinking that God is just there during the hard times and not realize how much God is willing and offering to us, willing to give us, and is offering us during the good times. But we got to remember him then too, and to be thankful for him. And we need this part about the joy that is in the 23rd Psalm, because frankly we have a tendency to rush through it. We preachers love to talk about the fact in the 23rd Psalm, it says, God makes us lie down in green pastures. And we know the truth of that too. Sometimes we need to be made to see the good things that are all around us. The joys that are surrounding us each and every day. We focus so much on the negative, or we're just in such a hurry. What we end up doing is galloping through the green valleys and taking a quick drink out of the still waters, and then off we go, on to the next thing. And we don't appreciate life and the joys of life when it is actually occurring. I've always loved that old play, or at least it's old to me, the play of Our Town. Remember Our Town? It was just a lovely little play about one little family, actually a boy and a girl who meet and fall in love and get married. It goes throughout the rest of their lives, and finally at the end of the play, the girl in it dies. And we see her spirit. And her spirit is given an opportunity to look at her life one more time and look at the world. And she gets to experience it. She does experience a day in her life until finally she just can't stand it anymore. And she says, oh, it all went by so fast. We didn't have time to really see each other. We didn't have time to appreciate it all. Oh, just one more look before I go. Goodbye, Mom and Dad. Goodbye, clocks ticking, and Mom's sunflowers, and food, and coffee, and fresh iron dresses, and hot baths. Oh, it's so beautiful. The world is so beautiful. Do we ever see it when we're actually living through it? What did the scriptures say? He makes us to lie down in green pastures. That's good. We need that. We need to be made to lie down, and we need to be aware, too, that God is with us during those good times, because we tend to think that when times are going well, we're doing it all ourselves. And we don't need God. You know, that's all right, but it's actually during the good times when we often get in trouble. You know, it's when the guy got his barns all filled up, and that was it. It was a good time. He was celebrating. His barns were all full, and that's when the Lord came, God came and said, tonight your spirit is required of you. It can be right when our barns are fullest that we're going to need God the most. We need to keep watching out for God. And so, yes, we are grateful for the good times, and we're grateful for these verses that they remind us of the green pastures, to be grateful for them and to open our eyes to them when they come. But it's hard, too, to imagine these verses, the 23rd Psalm, with all of the bad taken out. Okay, so think about that. These beautiful verses, and now it's all green pastures and tables full of food and anointed heads being anointed. It's all the good stuff, and none of the bad stuff's in there. No enemies, no dark valleys, and yes, actually it still sounds pretty nice. I mean, there's a lot of positive there, but it doesn't ring true. Because that's just not the way the world is. Robert Frost, the poet, once said, I have become well acquainted with the night. Oh boy, that's true. Don't we all become well acquainted with the night? Dark times come to us, and someone else once said that we are all, when it comes to death, we're like unfortified cities. Death is going to come. It's going to come for those we love. It's going to come eventually for each one of us. And it's good to be reminded about that as well, because actually some of the most important times in our lives are times of suffering. I thought about this week. I was looking through my desk, and I have a very sparse desk. My tendency is to throw everything away. And I don't collect anything that I can think of or remember, but I do have a little collection of 3 bulletins in my desk from old worship services here at the church. And they're not from Christmas Eve. They're not from weddings. They're not from when my children were baptized. None of those times. They're actually 3 services that were funeral services here at the church. So every time I get done with the funeral service, I go and I take all of my notes, and I take the bulletin, and then they give me a clergy record about the person's life, the funeral homes normally do, and I take all that stuff and I throw it away. That's not a problem for me. And again, I like to throw things away. But the time came for these 3 particular bulletins where I didn't throw them away. I put them in my drawer, and they're there. My otherwise empty drawer are these 3 bulletins from 3 services, and I was looking at that, and I had just done it, and I had always kept them, and I never really asked myself why. Why these 3 particular bulletins? Of all the things I've thrown away and given away. And I actually thought about it all week as I was thinking about this sermon. And just this morning I realized it. I took them out once again as I was going over the sermon, and I put them out, and I realized that these 3 services were 3 of the funeral services here at the church where everyone in the church was grieving. Everyone in the church was grieving. So because everyone knew these people, or because just the story of their deaths was so sad, so compelling, and we were all grieving with the family for that reason. And so I kept these bulletins, and I realized it's because those moments in the church are so important. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm glad for the weddings and the times of joy and the baptisms and the fellowship dinners and all the celebrations that we have, birthdays and other things here in the church. I am grateful for them. But the times when we come together and we grieve as one people, and without that, all of this loses its meaning. The times when we are united together, and yes, united in celebration too, but united in grief as well. I am grateful. I celebrate the fact that there are in our lives both dark valleys and green pastures. And I am so grateful that God goes with us through it all. Each and every one. It's something we are called to recognize as Christians. It is something we are called to respond to as Christians. But this is what we learn about the God who is of every time from his psalm for all seasons. Let's bow in prayer. Loving God, we do give thanks that you are with us when we call on you in need and in suffering. That we can feel your love and your compassion, particularly through the love and the compassion of others, those in our family, those among our friends, and yes, those here in our community of faith as well. Lord, thank you for the meaning, the truth, the love that we can find even in the valley of the shadow of death. Loving God, thank you for the green pastures as well. For moments of quietness and comfort, for loud moments of celebration and joy. Loving God, help us to remember you during these times as well. Help us to call out to you, not as much in need, but now in gratitude. Giving you thanks for all the blessings and all the beauty that surrounds us every day. Loving God, as we prepare now to come to this table, to partake of this bread and this cup, help us, Lord, to bring our troubles here to you, to lay them down if possible. And Lord, help us also to come here to experience your love through the love that we all share. Lord, bless these elements of bread and cup to the nourishment of our bodies and our spirits. In Jesus Christ's name we pray.